What's up, guys? We are back with a brand new wave of ThunderCats Ultimates from Super7, and this is the big one because, well, it has the big figure, but it's also the wave that has been the most problematic. You know, things are still getting out there, and Wave 2 has been the big one that has had to go back for revisions and just seemingly taken forever to get to us. So we've had Wave 1, Wave 3, Wave 4, and 2 are going to be on their ways very soon, I believe. So we're taking a look at the big one. We're going to take a look at Mumm-Ra because it's the big wave with the big guy. I got to take a look at him first. And he comes in a massive, absolutely massive, massive box. So this thing is humongous, and it gives you a very good idea of exactly how big this figure is. Of course, it's the same kind of box, so it's that trapezoidal shape. Still got the slip cover, so black field with Mumm-Ra's logo on it, the dueling serpents. And then, of course, the back has got our ThunderCats logo. But it's a slip cover, like I said, so you can pop this guy off. And then you've got your Mumm-Ra there in the big window with all of his accessories. And then you've got ma-mutt down there with him as well, with a little bit of artwork and a bio on the back. And of course, that artwork is the same artwork that we see with the reaction figures. So yeah, I mean, big figure, big box. There's a lot to unpack here. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go. Out of the package, our Super7 Ultimates ThunderCats Wave 2. We're going back in time, basically. Wave 2. Mumm-Ra the Everliving. Without a doubt, the version of Mumm-Ra that everybody truly wants. It's nice to have the mummy version. You can't not have both. But, I mean, come on. Look at this guy. He's absolutely crazy. There is a ton of stuff going on here. He's humongous. That's certainly the big, no pun intended, draw for this figure, is the fact that it's finally a collector-level transformed Mumm-Ra that is of size. You know, so we've had a vintage figure. Of course, there was the Bandai 6-inch, which, you know, didn't really work. And then there was the Icon Heroes Staction that was actually done by the Four Horsemen, but it was not an action figure. And then we've got this. So this is the culmination of years of waiting, basically, to finally get a hold of a fully articulated, ever-living Mumm-Ra. And there's a lot to talk about here. Not just the fact that it's the biggest figure in the line now, but that this figure, at least right out the gate, feels very much in line with Wave 4. And if you caught my reviews for Wave 4, I kind of ranted and raved on the fact that they felt different. They felt like a progression for this line, like a progression in the right direction. He feels very much the same. He's still very standard Ultimates, he's just a lot bigger. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. It's going to be exactly what you expect. There's not really any surprises here. He does have a cape. So that is going to, I'm not going to say it gets in the way, but you will have to sort of, you know, mess with it when you're posing him because Mumm-Ra's cape connects to his back and to his wrist, so you're probably going to have to reposition it. I probably will have to do that as well. So you got a head that is able to really just swivel. You've got a little bit of bobble action, but there's what I'm thinking, at least to my eye, is a slightly stubby neck, and of course the wraps around his throat really do get in the way. I don't know that there's much clearance to do much otherwise, but it doesn't do much more than twist, unfortunately. Now, the cape connects with these little holes that connect to these, you know, little like horns or spikes more likely on his wrist. They might pop off just to, you know, when you move, it's fabric and it's a little hole. So just keep that in mind. You've got arms that go out about yay far. Now, he does have full rotation, but you're going to have to watch because of the cape, obviously, so you have to watch how you position him when you move it. There is full capability, but the cape is going to get in the way because of how it connects. You've got bicep swivel. We've got our single jointed, you know, basically 90-degree elbow. It also has rotation. You've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. We'll put the cape back on him. Now for crunch, it's pretty standard Ultimate, so he goes backwards actually a decent bit, and then he goes forwards about yay far. Not too bad. You do have your waist twist down there. He does have a whole bunch of business on him. Like, I mean, it's pretty obvious. So the wraps are connected to the figure. They're glued on in a few spots, and then they wrap around his neck. So they are going to, you know, kind of move with the figure. You do have to kind of watch what you're doing with it. It's not going to pose an issue of just, you know, word to the wise. Legs go out about this far. The skirt piece, surprisingly, gives a lot of movement. Like it actually has a lot of give to it. It's not nearly as rigid as it looks. Like it's relatively pliable, so that's nice. You can kick forward pretty much all the way. Backwards a little bit. There is, of course, a twist up there at the, because it's a ball peg. And then you've got your single jointed with slight rotation knee down here. It's not like full because it's going to get tight, but it does allow you to twist that a little bit. He does not have a boot cut or a shin swivel, so that knee is going to come in handy to kind of replace that a little bit. And then you've got your rocker, and we've got hinges down at those ankles. They go backwards really nicely, like surprisingly far, and then forward pretty good as well. So, I mean, he's pretty standard Ultimates. I'm not sure there's anything that I truly think is missing in the confines of this line. He's just a bigger example of this articulation scheme. The only real gripe I have is that the head does have, limitations, and then I kind of wish the cape would just, get out of its own way at times. But once he's posed, you can put it back on, and then he's going to be fine. So you just have to watch it while he's in motion. Now, as far as the aesthetics on Mumm-Ra, I'm incredibly happy. I think he looks great. He moves pretty well, but he looks even better. There is, of course, the argument to be made that he's maybe colored in a very specific direction. Mumm-Ra kind of exists at times in a very green to blue ratio, maybe lending itself more towards the green side. This is definitely more towards the blue side of things, so he's definitely very, very blue. I'm okay with it. I kind of wish he might have been dialed back just a little bit, but I do think he's going to look pretty good, especially next to the Super 7 Mummy Mumm-Ra. They're very much going to be color coordinated. So, your mileage may vary on that. I'm okay with it. I think he looks all right. It's all the other stuff on this figure that truly brings him together, because not only is he massive, but there's a decent bit of shading all over him. Pretty much all the musculature is shaded on this figure. He's got a lot of this metallic paint for all of the bangles and like the bracers that he wears, and then his boots. You've even got it on the little rubbery skirt piece here. But the musculature on him is incredibly well sculpted. I mean, he's huge, and let's get that out of the way. He is a very big figure. He's almost 9 inches tall to the top of the headdress, say about 8.5 to the top of his head. So he is a very large figure. He's going to tower over the rest of the line. And he's definitely sized accordingly. So he's very thick, barrel-chested. He's got really big, beefy legs. There's a lot of muscly blue figure here. And I think he looks really good. I think the Super 7 and the Horseman did a really good job crafting this figure. And like I said, the musculature is sculpted, so there's a decent bit of shading on the arms, on the legs. It's mostly on like the upper parts of the shoulders, and then he's got it on his abs, but he's got a ton of it on his legs. Like specifically the thighs have a lot of this dark blue shading to bring it out. So it just, it makes the light hit it a little bit differently and casts its own shadow. Does look really nice. It just makes him look even more robust and thick. I do, again, really like the gold paint that they've used for the gauntlets, bracelets or whatever, the bracer on his arm. It's just incredibly shiny. It's very metallic. Like, it looks almost like, I'm pretty sure there's like a pitted nature to the sculpt on these, and it's just helping to bring that out a little bit. Same with the ribbed nature on the skirt, and then of course you've got the black and the red, which is painted really nicely as well. That line is very clean. And then we've got his little shin guards. They're not boots because he doesn't have anything on his feet, but you've got these shin guard armor plates that look really great. More of that sort of like pitted nature to it, so you can kind of see how this metallic plastic or paint rather will sort of shine through. And then you've got the darker gold up here just as an accent piece. Of course, you've got the blue feet, but they have the bushy fur on there as well, because why not? He's transformed. He can have furry feet. That's his own thing. We do of course have the dual serpent emblem on his chest, and that's actually sculpted on top. It's raised and then painted. So it's raised, painted red, and then you've got the snakes that are painted as well. Mine's pretty clean and crisp. I mean, it's got to be a tampo, but it is really nicely done, and definitely very crisp. No issues with fuzziness or weird line work. It looks a lot better than, say, like Lion-O's Eye of Thundera on his sword did in Wave 1. By comparison, this is miles better in quality. We do have the wraps on him, and like I mentioned, these are connected to the figure, so they're not going to be falling off or going anywhere. You just have to watch it when they move just to make sure that they're not, stressing. But there's a lot of leeway with these too. So they're connected to the waist, the back, and the arm. So you've got them wrapped up, the arm coiled up, goes around the back, and then you've got it that comes up and it sits underneath the head. So if you took the head off, you could take that off, but it would just be dangling. And this looks really good. Like, I think they add a little bit of oomph to him, because there's a lot of business going on with Mumm-Ra. He's a very busy figure, busy character, because he's got all the headdress stuff, he's got the cape, and then he's got the wraps too. But they make him, I don't know, they beef him up a little bit more. They give him a little bit more dimension, I think. And then of course they whack him down the middle, and then he's very asymmetrical. So you've got all this stuff over here. So you've got the wraps on one side, the bangle on the other. Just makes him a little bit different. And I like the asymmetry at times. Now, we do have the cape, which I mentioned is a little bit more robust than I expected. So this thing actually sits under the headdress, under the wraps. There's a little notch on his back, and you'll peg the cape onto that. And then he's got, I'm going to take it off for this. You've got these little spikes on his wrist here that will hold the cape with these holes. Those are separate pieces, so they could come out. Watch out, you don't want to lose it. But this thing is wired, of course, so I mean, it can outstretch and be like existing on its own if you want, but you've still got the holes to deal with. So it's wired all the way through. It's wired on the sides as well, but it's also wired down the cape itself. So there's a wire here at this seam, there's a wire here, and there's a wire here. So you've got a fully wired frame, not the bottom, but the frame on the upper and the outer sides, and then you've got these sort of supports in the middle, which allow it to like be billowing backwards a bit better, so it can support itself without necessarily needing the arms or the pose the figure is in to do the support work, if that makes sense. So that's really cool. Like, I really do like that. Of course, this is the same kind of soft goods we've seen across the board for Ultimate Wishes to say it's really nice. I've got no issues with it. The fit, the feel, the two-tone nature of it looks fantastic. You know, again, you've just got to watch when it comes to these little spikes that you're making sure everything is lined up correctly. And then we come to, you know, the crowning part of the figure. We've got the head sculpt, and this thing looks great. I'm incredibly happy with the head. The facial expression, as far as this, it's not even neutral. He's got this sort of evil smirk going. You can see all those gnarly, crooked, nasty teeth in there. We've got those sunken red eyes with the black circles around. You've got those sort of almost grayish blue, like eyelids and eyelashes up there, or what would be eyelashes, eyebrows. And he just looks great. He looks very devious and evil without, you know, being screaming like the other head is going to be. So you've got options. You've got two very evil head sculpts, but this is a really cool, almost neutral one. I'm really happy with the way this turned out. There's a lot of wrinkles and gnarliness going on with this head sculpt. And then, of course, you've got the head dress, which looks tremendous. There's more of that two-tone gold paint, so it's the darker gold on the sides with the brighter gold for this little piece here, the little flourish. This thing's kind of gummy, so I've been trying to fix it. It did come out a little warped. I'm sure a little heat's going to fix that. And then you've got the twin serpents up there that are purple and black, which are sculpted really nicely for being so tiny. And then, of course, on the back side, you've got, you know, the headdress that comes down. You've got the wraps that are jutting out the back, black and red motif as well. So he just looks tremendous. Like, it's not just about the size, it's about the overall sculpt. It's about all the stuff that is on this figure. He's a little bit more robust in just about every detail than a lot of other figures in this line. And then he has, you know, the best cape we've gotten so far. It just does a lot to enhance this figure while also being incredibly easy to work with and pose. Now, of course, we have to do some size comparisons to other Mumm-Ra. So we've got our LJN Vintage here on the left and our Bandai 6-inch on the right. So this is the 6-inch line they did about 10 years ago, where they tried to course correct after they did an 8-inch line, and they put out 4 total figures, and then it all died. So, you know, this was the end of that, basically. And then, of course, our Super 7 in the middle. Not a lot to compare to in terms of, you know, functionality, build quality, articulation. Super 7 just trumps all of it. And then, of course, you know, design, sculpt, of course they do there also. The LJN is still its own thing. I mean, I still have a great fondness for the vintage stuff, but this is the best thing we have ever gotten, hands down. There is really no room for debate as far as an action figure goes. Here he is with the Super 7 Ultimates Mummy Mumm-Ra, and you can see their colors line up really, really well. And then here is the Matty Collector, the original Mummy Mumm-Ra, and you can see the colors there skew closer to the vintage toy. And then, of course, you know, the fact that he does show up in the cartoon a lot of times looking similar to that also. But there is, you know, another thing I want to talk about too in terms of comparisons. So, you know, you can see the two big figure contenders for other figures, and then we've got his other form for size. You know, he's a lot taller. But let's move these aside. And then this is another Mumm-Ra, but it's not a figure. It's a statue. Well, you know, they call them Staction figures because it's action figure sized, but it's a statue. And what's interesting about this one is that it's the same size. It's the same color. The idea here is very, very similar in terms of execution. and it was sculpted by the Four Horsemen. So this is the Icon Heroes Staction figure for the Everliving Mumm-Ra. It came out around the same time as the Classics line from Matty. I believe it was like afterwards or something. It's what I've used for years as my stand-in Mumm-Ra for this line, because it's really close. I mean, and thematically and overall design idea, these two very much line up. So I'm really curious if this thing played any factor into what we got as the finished product here, at least as far as the Horsemen go. This thing's a really cool interpretation, and this is just, built upon it even more. It's a little bit bigger, it's a little bit beefier, and then of course it is articulated. There's not really much to compare to because this is a statue, but I thought it'd be really cool to bring this out because one, I'm not sure if everybody truly knows that this thing exists, and two, they are so close in idea. And then as far as our size comparisons go, here we are with Slithe on the right because he is so unique. He fills a very specific spot in this line. And then Lino on the left, and Lino is very much kind of the everyman figure when it comes to this line. He's the base when it comes to a normal figure. So Panthros like him, Jackalman, Monkey, and Linkso, they're all very similar in size. You can get an idea of what he looks like next to Mumm-Ra, and I think that's a pretty good indicator of just how big he is. Because Lino's a tall figure, especially with that hair, and Mumm-Ra is over a head taller, not to mention the fact that he is much larger in general because of the fact that, everything has to be scaled up for him to be this tall in general. Now, what about the bigger figures in Ultimates, though? So, these are not the big ones by any means, so let's move Slithe and Lino aside, and let's go with the real big boys. So here he is with Snowman, and here he is with Muckman, and you can see that he is still very much a big figure. They have some bulk on him. They're very different in terms of composition. They're very beefy, very stocky figures, but Mumm-Ra has this huge hulking presence about him, and it comes through really nicely with these figures. I really think it shows exactly what we're dealing with here. Again, he is almost 9 inches tall to the top of his headdress, and he is a very bulky figure. But let's do a couple others that aren't Ultimates. We'll do a couple things that are, normal 1/12 scale to give me an idea. Just throw him in front here. So here he is with Wolverine, and here he is with Boba Fett, and just to do it, here he is with a reaction figure with King Diamond. So you can see, he's absolutely huge. He completely dwarfs the non-Ultimates figures and even puts the Ultimates in their place. He is a very big figure. He's very tall, very menacing, and he's got a great presence because of all that size. Now, as far as accessories goes, Mumm-Ra is pretty well stacked, and he has one truly amazing accessory. That's really the one that I needed the most. But then we've got some just really good stuff in general. There's a lot of stuff here that I think will make folks happy. There is one glaring omission that we'll talk about, though, that I didn't really think about until I saw the box for this guy. So at the start, we do get an extra head sculpt, and this is probably my favorite of the two, because he was always just screaming his head off the entire show, just nonstop screaming and cackling, spit falling out of his mouth and everything. So this is that head, and I think it looks great. I really like the expression. I just like the idea of him, having this gaping maw screaming his heads off at the ThunderCats. So I'm very happy with this one. It's more of the same. They're very similar, but you've got two really solid head sculpts to pick from. So pick your poison on that one. I think you'll be happy with either. We get fists on him in the box, and then you get 2 extra sets of hands. So you get a set of gripping hands. And then we get a set of sort of clawing style pose hands, gesturing hands of some kind, normal stuff like that. We get this. This is one of the more deep cut kind of accessories that we get. This is the gyroscope regulator that gets stolen towards the end of the show. It's one of those things, end of the show things, a lot of the treasures that the other ThunderCats have, stuff like that. I don't know what I'm ever going to do with this. I feel like it took a spot from something that should have been in this, which we'll get to here in a second. He comes with a ma-mutt, which I'm very happy with. This guy is articulated. So he's got a swiveling head and he's got swiveling legs as well. So all the legs move. But I mean, this is really nice. I'm really happy that we got him in this box so that it's not a situation where later down the road, you know, where we didn't have him, he'd have to be packed in with something else. It's nice to get them both just in one fell swoop. And he looks really good. There's a lot of paint on him. There's a lot of shading on the legs all over the back. There's a big hump there. And then that face is really, really well done. This curmudgeonly little pup that this Mumm-Ra absolutely just loves. He's the most evil guy in the universe, but he absolutely loves his dogs. So we've got our ma-mutt, and I want to bring this up now because just like this guy has a Staction figure, so does ma-mutt. So we've got this too. I'm telling you, I'm thinking the Horsemen took some inspiration from themselves when they made these, because this is the Staction ma-mutt that goes with that Mumm-Ra I showed you, and it was again done by the Horsemen. So very, very similar. Different posture a little bit, but very similar. I mean, it's just a cool little thing, not a big deal. And then we've got, this thing's just freaking massive. So we've got the Sword of Plundar. Now, of course, the regular mummy Mumm-Ra comes with the just the unignited hilt. So if you wanted to have him like that, you could use that. But you've got this monster sword. I feel like, you know, it looks okay. I do think it's very cartoony in its design because it's very flat. So it's not metallic at all. It does have a little bit of a luster to it, but it's not really, it's not, you know, metallic painted or anything like that. And the hilt is just sort of yellowy, like a gold yellow color, but it's not metallic either. But this thing's huge. I mean, it's I don't know, it's a foot tall at least. It's taller than the figure by a wide margin. So this monster crazy sword is like the big takeaway when it comes to this figure for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, ma-mutt's awesome to get as well. But as far as an accessory that is specific for something he can hold, this is where we start and stop for me. So I'm really happy we got that. However, there is one thing to mention, because it's on the box, but it's not in the box. So like I mentioned when I showed off the package, the box art for this uses the reaction figure art. The reaction figure is based on the LJN figure, which includes this sword. So this sword is on the box, but it's not in the box, and I wish it was. I'm not saying I would necessarily prefer it over the Sword of Plundar, but it's on the box. It probably should have been in there. It made me think that it was and that I had forgotten about it, but it turned out to not be in there. So, we got the regulator thing, but at the end of the day, if there was a spot for this, there probably should have been a spot for that too. So, that's a negative for me. It's not the biggest deal. It's certainly not the end of the world, because, we've got this big old thing, but it's worth mentioning. Otherwise, really solid array of accessories. Again, we get a pack-in buddy with this, and I say it with turtles, and I'll say it here. Any figure with a buddy is already instantly better. So yeah, this guy's a winner. I don't really know if there's much more that I need to say. He's not perfect, but he's definitely one of those figures like Monkey in Wave 4 that I feel like is a good example of how this line is going to progress and grow. He just feels better than a lot of other figures in this line. Sculpt is fantastic, especially the head sculpt. He looks tremendous. Paintwork is really nicely done. All the small details are very clean and crisp. Sizing, of course, is very impressive. He is scaled really well. Soft goods, nicely done. They went kind of an extra step to reinforce that cape and add extra wires to make it more robust, which I do really like that. My one real big gripe about him is that he's shown with an accessory on the box that isn't in the box. I wish he came with that vintage LJN sword, because if it's on the box, it should be in the box, and I wish he had that. I do love the stuff he comes with. The Sword of Plundar is crazy. That extra head sculpt is absolutely wild. And of course we get ma-mutt, and he's articulated, so it's nice to get both of them at once and not have to worry about how we get that little guy later down the road. All in all, a very, very nice package, and a barometer for quality going forward, I think, when it comes to this line. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates ThunderCats Wave 2 Mumm-Ra the Everliving. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.